Everything was your father's fault. Or, well, at least that's what you needed to tell yourself to cope with your life. The stress, the responsibility, it all was your father's fault. Yes, it was him who made your family rich. It was him who put so much pressure on you. Perform good in school, be a good representative of our family, always. Thing was that he wasn't even a terrible person. Beneath his expectations for you, well, he was a good man. His expectations were so high in the hopes you could one day continue his work, make yourself even richer, etc. He was just doing it all wrong, and he was too stubborn to dial it back just a little bit. Your name was Veremina Wallflower, heiress of the Wallflower corporate empire. An empire of hotels, inns, and Airbnbs, all across the country. And currently he was attempting to dig his claws into other countries, such as the biggest tourism country on the globe, Spainage. You weren't sure what was worse, though. The fact your father got married to Lorena Wonder Pretty, one of the most attractive supermodels of her generation, just so he could breed an heir for the sole purpose of continuing his lineage and empire once he died. Or the fact that you felt as if you failed in that one thing you were supposed to be good at. You were a pretty little puppet. You had your father's grey felt skin, your mother's beautiful white nose and rainbow-colored hair. But you were born without eyes and required glasses to see. Thick circle glasses that made you look a bit like a mole. You had a white tongue, and the inside of your mouth was a pretty red, just like your mother's. You weren't tall, but that hardly mattered for the purpose you had been born for. What mattered was that your personality was cutthroat, which, due to the relentless bullying you experienced during your school time, entirely based on the fact that you were rich, a little quirky, and liked being alone, just didn't happen. You were scared, and a very short fuse when it came to doing anything. You weren't lazy, or at least that's what you liked to believe, but more, you didn't believe in yourself. Why bother trying if whatever you touched broke? Your father's final solution was sending you away, with meager pocket money just enough to afford the essentials, which thankfully, due to your status, was still quite a lot for a normal puppet. And a lot for you too. After all, you learned some resourcefulness from the bullying. You were sent to a quiet neighborhood, far away from the big city you had called home. Ironically, the neighborhood too was called home. It was all thanks to your parents being quite literally blinded by their work and money that they didn't realize that this wasn't a punishment. The money was good, the house even better, and you could spend the entire day locked up in your personal library, reading books. You started the day as per usual. You reached for your glasses before getting up on your feet, stretched exactly 3 times before rubbing over your face, where your eyes should be if you had any, followed by slipping out of bed right into your cuddly bunny wubby dubby comfy home shoes. Put on your pink bathrobe with the bunny-eared hood, and then getting into your kitchen for breakfast. Coffee, or your dad would call it candy. It was a delicious creation. Just a tiny bit of coffee, about a quarter mug. followed by milk, cream, multiple syrups, strawberry cream drizzle, and cookie crumbs as sprinkles. Honestly, that thing, your creation, could barely even be classified as coffee, but it sure as hell made your mornings feel bright and cheerful. Sighing, you sat down, slowly drinking the concoction, humming quietly and joyfully. This was a life you could live. You swiped away a little strawberry cream off your upper lip, licking your finger. Delicious. But just as you were returning the empty mug to the sink, your doorbell rung. The shock made you drop it. Your heart pounded immediately. You didn't expect anyone. Your father would always call first, and your mother would write at least 3 letters in anticipation of coming to visit. It had to be a neighbor. With quivering lips, you left your kitchen, approaching your front door. The bell rang again impatiently. With a shaking hand, you removed the iron bars you had set up on the door, unlocked the 3 locks, before finally praying and opening the door just a tiny bit. In front of your door stood Wally Darling, Holmes' painter. You looked at him. He smiled at you. He could only make out the little light reflection from your glasses. "Morning, neighbor," he said cheerfully. You didn't respond. "I just wanted to invite you to our barbecue." "Barbecue?" you murmured, barely audible. "Yes, it would be much better if everyone in the neighborhood participated. I just want to make sure you're properly invited." "Everyone?" Wally tilted his head questioningly. "Everyone," he repeated. This was an optional thing, though, and Wally didn't realize that by saying everyone, it made you feel like this was required, that you had to attend. "Do I need to bring something?" you asked, hoping he'd say nothing. "Well, everyone brings something, food and drinks. We'd like to share." Again, he didn't realize that right now he was just putting more and more pressure on you. You felt like vomiting your heart out. "Okay." Your voice by now was a mere whisper. "Okie dokie. Nice to have you on board. I'll pick you up at 6. You watched Wally leave. With a pounding heart, you marched into your bedroom, threw off your cuddly clothes for your real ones, a black maid dress you had gotten from your mother, in the hopes this more or less sexy attire would make you feel more comfortable in your own skin. Well, the thing is comfortable. You liked wearing it, but it didn't affect you mentally. So it really was just something you wore on a daily basis. You made yourself another of your special coffees, and after that, was in your gut, you finally built up enough courage to leave your house. Your goal was the only store in home, Howdy Pillar's grocery store. Thankfully, you managed to avoid any social interactions by avoiding the road and going over the green. Entering Howdy's store, the caterpillar puppet greeted you with a happy smile. "Hello there, Miss Wallflower. The usual?" You sunk your head. Is that a no? A yes? Without looking at him, you turned to the grocery aisles. "Huh, so no it is. Interesting," he said, and then sat back down on his little stool, continuing filing his nails. Meanwhile, you explored the fridges, going for the most juicy steaks you could find, spices, exotic ones, and oils, expensive ones. By the end of it all, you slammed a huge stack of items on Howdy's counter. He was taken aback, unsure of what to do now. Normally you just got coffee cream and bread. Well, maybe this was a chance. He cleared his throat. Normally this only applied to small things like apples or a pack of gum, but Howdy turned to a sign behind him, pointing at it with all his 4 hands. The sign was a reminder for Howdy Pillar's policy of getting items for free by making him laugh. Your lips quivered as you read it, and you looked at him. His hopeful expression was becoming forced. You opened your mouth a little, but whatever you said was too quiet for him to hear. And once your joke, ? Had been said, he forced a chuckle. Good one. You blushed, taking her items and leaving without as much as a goodbye. When you re-entered your house, you threw all the items on your oven as you began to prepare your food. Using the spices, oils, and vegetables, you created a divine marinara sauce, which you put into plastic bags with the meat, and then placing them into your fridge. Your kitchen looked incredibly messy afterwards, and you spent all the time until the barbecue just cleaning the place. It was obvious, not to you but to anyone else, that you were going completely overboard. The pressure and stress placed upon you by the painter, while unintentional, made you a ticking time bomb. At any moment you'd break out into tears. And all for this was for nothing, as you'd retreat into your library if it happened. But you just barely managed to get it all together. Covered in sweat, legs shaking, you brushed your hair, hoping that could calm you down enough, but to no avail. You wouldn't be able to calm down until the social interaction was over. And so, when the evening came and Wally picked you up, you put all the steaks into a cooling bag before waiting in front of the door for the painter. Honestly, it was 5, so you stood there shaking violently before your front door for precisely an hour. Scenarios going through your head that were so impossible that to you they were possible. Your least favorite being your marinara sauce killing the entire neighborhood, leading to you being put in prison for the rest of your life, getting mistreated by everyone again, like back in school. But this time, prison style. Your anxiety was becoming so strong, some strands of hair turned white. Wally knocked on your door when the clock hit 6. He himself had been standing before your door for 5 minutes, just because he didn't want to be late. He opened it, poking her head out. "Can't I just give you my bag?" Wally blinked. "Your bag?" You opened the door wider, placing the cooling bag on your porch. Wally opened it, a curious expression on his face. It was filled with meat bags. He opened his mouth out of sheer surprise. He didn't know what to say. You probably alone had enough meat in there for the entire neighborhood. Minus Julie, who currently was having a vegetarian phase. Again, she had that at least once per year, until her cravings for burgers became too strong. "Did you make it all by yourself?" I mean, I didn't kill any cows." That wasn't even an attempt at humor, but Wally chuckled a little. "Well, we will surely have a gay old time with all of that meat. But I'm not taking it." You squeaked in pure terror. "Why?" "I'm not taking it unless you come with me." And that is how Wally dragged you into your worst nightmare. A party. And he didn't lie. Everyone was here. Wally's hand practically fused with your wrist as he dragged you through the park where the barbecue was being held. You finished prepping the food everyone brought on a big lawn table together with Poppy, Julie, and Wally. Watched as the painter put the coals into a big grill next to you. Chuckling so quiet to himself not even you noticed it when you were hit in the face by a puff of coal dust. Because Wally, he understood. If anyone laughed at you tonight, that would be it. You'd practically be gone in that moment, locking yourself away from everyone, probably indefinitely. Wally even sat down next to you at the table when the food was served. But that's when the magic happened. As you were offered one of your own steaks, butter soft meat, steaming with the smell of spice and cooked flesh. It was to die for. And the moment it touched Wally's tongue, he grunted. Man! Leaning back, for a moment you were scared he'd think it was terrible, but then he said, "This might be the best food I ever had. Oh my God." And suddenly, you were the center of attention. Your anxiety be damned. Everyone seemed to want a piece of you. They wanted your recipe. They wanted to congratulate you. Oh, stop talking. At some point you shut off, mentally disassociating, to the point where it all felt like a dream, with the same absent-minded numbness of your body. You stopped responding, just stared at your food. And time passed, as it does, always. At some point you managed to notice that you were being fed by someone. You ate whatever was given to you, not like you could taste it in your mental state. Light soon turned to darkness, as you had returned to reality. You stared up at the night sky. Extra for this occasion, the street lights of home had been turned off to allow for stargazing. You looked around yourself. You'd been lying on a field of grass. In the same park, the barbecue spot was just a few feet behind you. Next to you lay Wally, who had a chillaxed expression as he quietly looked up at the sky. No one else was around. "What happened?" You asked that without thinking. "Everyone left," he said quietly. "Was my food terrible? Was it that terrible? Was I boring? Was I..." Shh. He immediately interrupted you, leaning up and placing a finger on your mouth. You blushed. Yet, before you could run away, he leaned forward. Wally gently kissed you, his lips touching yours. Your little heart almost stopped. Of course you knew what kisses were. You just never thought you'd experience them. And so sudden too. You didn't know what to do next. But your body reacted, as if it knew. Pure and utter instinct alone was pushing you forward. You quite literally turned off your brain, but you weren't disassociating. No, you were, for the first time, accepting it. You took off your glasses, the equivalent of closing your eyes, so they weren't in the way. Tilting your head a little to allow the painter room for attack. His tongue prodding against your closed lips. Should you let him? You made a noise of discomfort, and Wally reacted instantly. He realized something. You are right now scrambling to rebuild your defenses. Your wall of self-doubt, the wall that prevented you from accepting good things. And so he pushed. You fell backwards. You couldn't see, but you knew he was above you. Pinning you down, gently caressing your face and body with his hands. Gently he rubbed your shoulders, your arms, and your tongues met. His hands now going up your thighs until they found the big white bow that held your dress together. The painter wasn't sure now. Should he go all the way? And for a moment he tried to separate from you, but you slightly raised your head, seeking the contact of his skin. And amused, Wally narrowed his eyes. All the way it was then. Thank you to the people who are supporting me on Ko-fi. You guys are keeping me alive.